Christchurch, and he was like, "Oh, that looks your impact." I said, "No, they're waiting for you to come back." You know, just I have to sow seed for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Everybody to the Vincent Community Board meeting for the Tuesday, the 30th of July. I have apologies from Di, who was maybe going to make it good, and he's not here. No, so apologies from Di. Somebody's going to move that those be received. Thank you, Tracy. Seconded Martin. All those in favour?
Yep.
And against? Carried. And we welcome to the public forum Nigel Murray and your guys. Come on up.
A couple of little map plans might be used to someone listening.
Thank you.
And here's a good presentation.
Thanks, Nigel.
Whakatauki, Koau, Kotataio, Koau. I am nature, and nature is us. I'm Nigel Murray, and we're just on the ad hoc Environmental Reserve Working Group, trying to make that place a slightly more user-friendly space and restore some of the vegetation to the area. I just wanted to give you an update on our plan at the moment because it's got lots of dependencies, but don't want to be rushing forward with things unless we have the community support. The project is to establish an island of native vegetation to be a seed island for the to transition the former wild and conifer grown areas into a native planting. It's part of a larger ambition to clear the project at the moment. It's part of a larger ambition to get rid of all the rest of the wild and conifers and to complete the work that had previously been done by CODC and neighbours. Our project is specifically to clear a very accessible part of the reserve that doesn't have too many pine trees on, doesn't become too big a project, to demonstrate the steps needed to transition the whole area into more native planting, and also to extend our group's capacity to deliver more plants to the ground as part of the bigger picture. We want to learn more about what particular challenges are encountered by projects of this sort of scale. We want to learn more about how plants actually respond in these sorts of environments. So some of our volunteers who are doing that sort of examination work at the moment. We've received some funding from the ORC Eco Fund to fund the actual trees themselves and some of the materials needed to protect those trees. And we think we can do somewhere between 500 and 1,000 depending on our final funding approval and income. We've had quite a lot of encouragement from other users of the reserve, such as Bayata, Mountain Biking Group, Artist Riding Group, the Walkers Group, Rotary and the Salvation Army were keen to be involved. We understand the limitations of this DCB and the CODC in terms of funding, so we're proposing to do this without any financial involvement from the council, except obviously staff supervision and ensuring the community is safe in these sorts of projects. We're presenting a plan to you now and asking for your support of that proposal. That little map circulating has in red the areas of planting that we have already done now down on the foreshore, and the area in red, and the big block in red, the area that we want to try and approach on this part of the project. You can see the tiny green spots, which are where our approximate identification of pine trees are. So it's a corner of the reserve of the area that's currently covered in pine trees. The ORC funding was for planting following native pine removal. So, you know, we're not doing pine removal at the moment on the thing. So the idea being that we take some pine trees away and we plant more native into the area, and we will comply with that support of the ORC and be able to uplift that funding. So our plan is 7 stages, obviously cutting the trees and taking away the large firewoods, taking away all the branches that are useful firewood work, and chipping all the slash so that we have some mulch and plant protection to the ground. Prepare the ground following that, and talking about leaving the stumps in the ground, so we're not talking about landscape excavation of any sort. And then a little bit like the half-mile reserve proposal is actually, rather than try and protect every 500 to 1,000 trees individually, which other groups do, we think in that area, considering the rabbit control has been pretty major and fairly successful at the moment, if we ring fence an area, we can keep the rabbits out of that area, if not, and protect the plants with a single fence. The reserve is currently abused by lots of four-wheel drivers, taking the whole reserve as a motorway, and so we would be putting this fence in there that's not currently used by four-wheel drivers around that area. Stage 6 is obviously planting, and stage 7 being maintenance, and we're expecting to undertake the weed control and or watering if needed in this area following the establishment of a series of plants. And in order to be able to deliver this without a CODC's BCB funding, we've engaged with a couple of firewood operators who are willing to cut and take away all the big stuff that they can easily make enough money out of to pay for the removal. We have had a specific quote from one of those firewood contractors. Local community groups, the Salvation Army and the Rotary both said they'd be keen to come in after that and take away the stuff that the firewood operator didn't want to take. They've also said they don't really want the small trees, which is absolutely fine for community groups to manage and take away, but they would cut them down. Think of that. The biggest risk is dropping trees in that area, and after that it's cleaning up a mess for everything. So the local community groups have offered to come in and follow the firewood contractor and take away all the big stuff that's useful for firewood, and we're proposing as our volunteer group to clean up the slash and put it through a chipper and produce the mulch that we can then use for the plants. The firewood contractor said as part of their dropping and taking away trees, they would be moving quite a lot of the branches and things around anyway, so they're happy to clear the site so that we can do the mulching. And he's a little bit uncertain about the final part, because that if there's a lot of firewood trees in there that have to do everything for nothing, and if it ends up by being not enough firewood trees for them to justify spending machine time there, probably a couple of $1,000 they're suggesting, then we may have to find the money to do that. That's not too big a problem, because then we can allocate that out of ORC preparation for planting funding, or we might mulch where it lies on the ground, so we don't have to be moving mulch back and forth. It depends. They'll have to do some moving of branches in order to get the logs out, so we're hoping we can just work with them to minimise any additional costs there. We've had a quote from the fencing contractor to ring fence the whole thing, which was a bit of a shock to be fair. So we'll look at finding that slightly, to delivering that in some cheaper way. Maybe we get some materials donated, maybe we get some discount on the contract work. But we have applied for funding with ECD for further funding to make that happen. We've already got about 500 plants ready to go, and as far as well, we've got about 500. We don't have, until we've cleaned them up from the winter, we won't know what's available to be delivered, but we've certainly got enough funding for another 500, possibly 1,000 plants to follow. So we're not worried about getting the plants themselves. Hire artists said their nurseries have been keen to support further work that they're doing, so they're willing to help us maintain that happen. And we've talked to our volunteers about doing the ongoing maintenance, principally as we control for the first few years. We're hoping this will be a very low watering scheme, but until we see how climate change affects our summer, we won't really know. So in summary, we know that the mechanism in the CODC is to produce a reserve management plan ultimately, and we know that's a couple of years of the lease process, and so we're not trying to get in the way of that, but we just want to do more plant trees in the way in which we're planted at the moment, which would be smaller scale, and like I say, we want to uplift the ORC money and demonstrate what we can do with a former Wilding Pines area. And so we do need, for the OSC grant, we need a management agreement from the CODC to be able to say, council is happy for us to continue to operate in the way in which we have done in the reserve. And we're proposing that we do this every time we want to vote, every stage of the project, ultimately, as I said, to maybe one day get rid of all the pine trees. So I reiterate, we're not asking the DCD for money. We're here to ask for your support for our work in the reserve and to increase the plant diversity in our environment.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nigel and Vinny. You might be surprised to hear that this board is somewhat cautious when it comes to cutting down wilding trees. Has anybody got any questions for Nigel?
Just putting a couple of things together with this. Is there much in the way of the small seedling trees that the forest boys aren't interested in? That
There's some, and we think there's about 30 to 50 trees that are in that area.
I'm just putting that with the Salvation Army and selling Christmas trees at Christmas time.
Yeah, not inspired for actually. They're all small, being foot diameter.
Small Christmas, small housing, small Christmas.
If you want any, I've got you.
Yeah, some of the trees in the next stage of planting are going to be further away from the water supply.
Yes.
What have you included in your estimates the cost of the infrastructure to actually get water to that area?
To date, we've done all our watering infrastructure, IBCs in various locations as donations from members, from volunteers, and 1,000 trees. We think we will have to have either a whole lot of those, or we'll have to have another way of delivering them. And ultimately, we would prefer not to have to do any watering, but almost certainly we will.
And the rabbit fencing, buying the materials and using volunteer support for that, I would have thought would be a better approach.
Yes, that's right. And some of it's done well enough to remain there for the duration.
Yeah.
So we were thinking, like in all of this project, we'd be thinking, let's get professionals in to do some of the work and to make sure that it's delivered properly. If it was a bigger scale project, we'll probably get them to do the whole ground clearance, planting, fencing as a package. But that's why we've started chopping to pieces.
So you're going to rabbit fence the whole island?
Yeah, that's the plan. And until we know where we're going finally, that process, we probably won't define quite where that rabbit fence is. The red line on that plan is our dream, and the fence will be bigger than, and the fencing area bigger than we can plant at the moment, so that we can plant the trees around once we've got a bit more funded from this.
What was the distance in that fence?
Something like 400 meters or something.
What is the time limit on your uplift of that grant from Otago Regional Council?
November.
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 I would like to acknowledge the work that you two and the rest of your group do for our community, because the volunteer hours that you put in are substantial. And I'm really worried. I don't want to dampen the enthusiasm that you have for this project and the good work that you're doing, but there are some constraints around timeframes and this board's ability to support that work and what you're looking for. And I wondered, David, if you could give an update on kind of the next steps.
Yeah.
So that we can, they're talking about engagement with the community, what does that look like?
Yeah.
What are the steps?
So yes, you guys know that there's currently a subcommittee that operate below this board as the Lower Manaboo subcommittee, and Roger's part of that as well. They are due, if they haven't met already, they're due to meet imminently to understand the future of this. And I think the conversation that we've had together is you guys are really keen to do the work but not run the administration part of it. And so for us, once that has been, decided on from that committee, is to bring that paper back to the board with your proposals as part of it as well, around how to operate as a friends of council for this board to be able to give you further guidance on that support. And we are a little bit hamstrung on, and I know this is so frustrating, I know, I hear it, but hamstrung on being able to give that guidance to the board to make that decision until we've got that. And hopefully that comes over the next sort of couple of months, but it may not be in time for your funding, just to manage expectations to get that across the line. But we do have it as part of our work program to try and deliver that, a reserve management plan. I would hope inside 2 years. We do have a planning strategy and policy person that will be going, they've got one other piece to deliver than this. And so I would hope that we could give a reserve management plan piece by, sort of the next 12 months or so. And with that, the management plan for this board to be able to provide a resolution to essentially, formally approve the work. But it is probably looking over the next 12 months to achieve that, and I know that's not ideal. And I see the amazing work that both of you guys do. We got to shift rocks together the other day. That was fun. And so probably having continual conversations with us and broadly around, some of these things that we can sort of continue on.
Yeah.
And then the other areas that we can keep, working way together in the back end, I think. And the continuous updates to the board, I think, are really helpful for you guys as well, because it is such a good reserve, and it is, as Tamer said, we have had some learnings in the past, and they are some good ones as well, for the board and for staff too. So, yeah.
Is there a date for the meeting of the subcommittee project?
No, there's not. I've been trying to get things motivated there, but so far with a lack of success.
Maybe that's something that you and I, Roger, could drive to make that happen within a short time frame, to then get a clear answer on what is happening with that subcommittee in whatever direction, and then we can communicate with you, and I'd be quite keen for that to happen over the next, if we could get it before our next meeting, that would be good, and then we can have a bit more of a steer from there.
Question.
Yeah.
So even though there's not a reserve management plan, what can the current committee actually do in the reserve area?
So they've got sort of, maintenance delegation from you guys. It's a very historic thing that they've got. I think they've been around for about 30 years or so. So yeah, essentially this board gave them that delegation all of those years ago for various reasons. There's a bit of a story behind it, which is quite cool. But the second thing as well is that there's probably some funding sitting in there, which this board can then align with some of the things that, maybe Nigel's talking about as well. So there's sort of the things that we just need to unfold, and some of the, historic things that have happened in this council, talk about districtisation stuff as well, but being able to, bring some of those back up to the board, it's going to be really helpful to also provide a bit of guidance to these groups as well, because, to give Nigel and Thing their dues, they've probably been working on this for 3 years, I would say. Yeah, so.
Well, let's have a game plan for the next 6 weeks. Here's
Yeah.
Am I clear that if we cannot give Nigel and his group a letter of support, you're likely to lose some funding fairly immediately.
The 6 months, in the 6 months since the ORC grant was approved.
Yeah, it's been approved, but subject to,
Yep.
so if I'm hearing this correctly, we cannot give a formal support to this group unless there's a reserve management plan in place. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what we've been told?
Cutting trees down, you need a development plan to do it. So you're going to cut trees down, what is the development plan to do it? And to do that, we need to consult with the community. And then we need a reserve management plan essentially to enable us to form a management plan. Is that correct, Gordon?
Yeah, I think, okay, yeah, but the board, if they have a report, be something.
Could potentially, I guess that's the question, could it be looked at outside of that process as a one-off special project?
Well, because if that committee can do maintenance, could you class it as maintenance? So,
Yeah, we'll come back, we'll just clarify that and come back to you.
Yeah, because what my biggest concern is if we have to wait, what we've been told is 12 months, and it's my experience will tell me is more likely to be 18, right? These good people are going to lose out on some funding, which the ORC, I understand, is not repeating that pot of, once that pot's used, that pot's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're in the same process. So are we happy that the formal paper comes back to this board at the next meeting and we will have hopefully some progress in a direction? And we will keep in touch.
And we should, with that, should be able to give you some interim support. Because
That's all it needs.
that's what you need. Yeah,
I just don't want to see the momentum lost with us.
yeah, it could be subject
You don't do an
to,
amazing job.
but it's basically, you know, we're giving them, yeah, okay.
We don't want to crush your enthusiasm, but let's come back as a formal paper. So next meeting, we will have something that can be discussed and a steer given in a direction from this board.
Can I ask a question, an organisational question, I guess? Is delegation to a non-functioning reserves committee, is that a lineal thing that nothing can come through the DCV unless it comes through that non-functioning committee? Or can you have more than one group interested in the reserve that come direct to you that you can work with and we can move forward with these things? We've been trying to get Barry and team to do things for a couple of years, including when we first got involved, when we had this conversation. We've actually had a couple of meetings with CODC in that time, you might remember, and we've talked about things we think need to be done and should be done in that reserve. And so for me, it's about we're hamstringing ourselves if we're looking at only one way in which you can be advised about the community's interest in the reserve. And then my question is, how linear is that?
It's a good question.
I could probably answer that with, I think that's why we want to clean all of this up with this conversation with the subcommittee. And I think once all of that's cleaned up, given the historic nature, then it's just going to be a much easier process. So as far as, I guess, the legalities behind delegations, I'm nowhere near close enough, but I think the plan, to have this discussion with them, so it is nicely cleaned up that, when ideas do come here, it's easy enough to put them forward as a formal paper and then find some resolutions that, a board can decide on.
It just sounds like you've also got quite a lot of support from a lot of the groups that use the, probably it'd be good to see some of that in letter format as well, so that when we are looking at things, the team's looking at things, they've got as much, when we're talking community, let's get the whole community behind it. Well, a letter would be, or bring them to the next meeting and fill the gallery. It's always a good way to, it's not that we don't believe you, but just so the community knows, the rest of the community knows that the majority of the community is actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
And I'll circulate the map and draw presentation to the rest of the meeting.
If you like.
If you want to slip it through to Wayne or to David and then indeed. Thank you very much. Thanks. Confirmation of minutes from our previous meeting, which was way back in June, 10th of June. Really happy to move that those are accurate or any additions made. Roger, thank you. Tony, seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Declarations of interest are there on page 12. Please check them regularly and let one know if they need to be updated. And then we move to our first report, which is on page 15, which is our Winterstellar grant report back. Welcome, Andy. And down from you.
Well, thank you, everybody. So what you have here is the report back from Winterstellar. The board approved a grant back in year one of the LTP across two of those LTP years, 4,000 in year one, which Winterstellar reported back on to successfully uplift the year two grant. However, with some changes and the loss of one of their key people, that work in year two, the transition across to 2 years worth of work. However, there's been some really nice positive outcomes from that, so I'm sure that Andy will share what they managed to achieve with the board's fund.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the generous grant. It was put to good use, and yeah, we did have to change things as we went along in regards to stuff, but to have that backup of that 10k, having it up front, really helped with other funding applications that we had as well, where you have to spend the money before you draw down funds. So even though we weren't getting into it straight away, it was a great practical use. So when we did get up and running to use them funds, it was there was 4 main projects that we directed it at. Firstly, it was the activities last year with Interstellar Central Stories. That included the schools day that we did alongside with Home Reap and Tiger Museum. We had about 650 kids through the Astrodome. I think I saw most of you there at various points. And we also did some like workshops out the back with me and Professor Brian Boyle as well in the Grant Gallery. So that helps cover costs for that as well. The other thing was to remind myself. Yes, we kicked off some astrotourism ventures out at Monte Cristo's. These are events that are best suited for the shoulder season in the spring and the autumn, so it's not too cold, and the darkness is not too inconveniently late. So we'll kick that off again come spring. The observatory project, which I know is something that it is supportable here. We've got an application into lotteries for funding for a feasibility study for that project. We did some preliminary things so we could have some meat on the bones of that application to lotteries, like where would it be, what would it look like, and so on. We were unfortunately declined on that. It did not tick all the boxes for lotteries that time. We plan to come back to you in March to and go to other funding providers to see what we can do for that in the new year. We will be doing more work when it is possible, like maybe having some events up there in the meantime, but we don't want to fail an application again. We want to make sure we get that right. So it's not something that we're going to move on from completely. We're just going to put it to one side for now. So, but the bulk of the funding that we used, that you provided, went towards the Aotearoa Astro-Tourism Academy, which we had in April this year. So that was the most popular and best version of that course that they've done, which is what they told us. We had about 35 people from backgrounds such as, well, QLDC had a couple, it's a group from Glenwalkie. There was local hospitality businesses such as Monte Cristo's, Duck Lauder, and lots of people from around Central Otago came, but there's also people from further afield, such as Wairarapa and Hawke's Bay and Auckland. The instructors that delivered that course were, New Zealand's prominent experts in astrotourism and astronomy. Like Professor Brian Boyle did some talks, but also Professor John Hearnshaw and Alan Gilmore and his partner from Mount John delivered great talks as well. And also the Vice President of Dark Skies International, who is currently a Kiwi from Auckland, and her partner is also the Oceania Director of Dark Sky Places. So a spin-off from what you helped us run, what you helped us bring to Central Otago is then connections and the impetus into the dark sky protection, which is what we are fully embracing with Winterstellar now. I noticed on the front of the presentation we gave you was one of our purposes is to promote the benefits of the dark skies of Otago, but we've since changed our trustee to say to promote and to protect the dark skies of Central Otago. So you've heard me come and talk more about the potential of International Dark Sky Reserve. So in effect, your funding has helped start that project, and moving that along has taken more of a priority over things such as the observatory, because when you walk out your building later and you walk across and you see the intermediate school, you'll see some of the newer problems that are happening. You'll see on the side of the big new building, there's big round lights just fitted to the side of the building where half the light just goes straight up into the sky. It's trying to light a footpath down there. So there's problems being introduced into the town which are going to affect anything that we want to build there. So yeah, doing something about that is more of a priority. So with Winterstellar, with the events that we're doing this year, part of it is an education thing, not just in the night skies, but how everybody can do things to protect it, and having to collect outdoor lights. And we'll also be telling more information about what a dark sky reserve is. So when we go to ask them in the future, they could be able to give us an informed decision about whether that is something the community would support. I'm going off into other areas now, so better stop. Any questions?
Roger.
I know at the moment you've only got 3 trustees. That's a sort of a slightly fragile in terms of robust, what the robustness that a board should ideally have. Do you have any plans to extend or get more trustees to strengthen your board?
Yeah, our board includes the 3 trustees. It also includes Marshall, who's another local astrophotographer, Christina Saunders, who's more in the hospitality industry with the vineyards around Cromwell. But yes, we are, since, it's only been 6 months since we've changed tack a wee bit in what we do. I mean, having a smaller board helps keep that nimbleness to be able to move in that direction. But yes, we have a board meeting in AGM next Monday, and that is one of the subjects which will be discussed. We already have 3 candidates. I don't want to name names because that would be inappropriate, but in areas such as hospitality, let's say atmospheric sciences, which is more lines up with what we're talking about, and art. It's not astrophotography. So I'll keep it cryptic like that, but we are, yes, looking to it.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions for Andy?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from you, Anne?
No, not at all. Just congratulate the team on starting to build those partnerships and looking at opportunities that provide reasons for people to come and visit this beautiful place.
I was sat next to a family who'd come from Wanaka at the opening, and they had attended the course that you run and loved it, and are working in that sphere around Westbury tourism for their business, and just couldn't speak highly enough of the experience, and managed to convince their 2 teenagers to come along who also enjoyed it. So I thought that was very well done.
Yes, I think another thing we talk about, I think we've got hot swims and what's it called, but yeah, hot swims onto the skies.
It does look amazing there. I had a look online.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. The recommendation is that the report be received. Tracy will move that, thank you, and Tony will second it. All those in favour? Right. Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. We now move to page 62, Alexandra Riverside Art Project, with Christina and also very special guests, Rory, David and Linda. And I believe Kitty Brown from Oklahoma will be joining us. Yes, welcome, Kitty.
And also Trent.
And also Trent.
But I'll do a reintroduction to her.
Just while everyone's getting themselves sorted, Christina will do a proper introduction. But this has been a collaboration of many minds, and so I've got so many people here. It's a pretty cool project, really. Lots and lots of people together. So hand over to Christina.
Alrighty. So lots, I think, first has happened since you last heard about this project in January. We have got, obviously, our project whānau has grown as well, and I'll do some introduction shortly. Also, we've been really successful with some funding as well. You'll see that we've got 250,000 from Central Lakes Trust. Also, just under 50,000 for the Lotteries Heritage and Environment Fund. And we've also got a Otago, the trust has a application with the Otago Community Trust for 185,000, and we're actually the meeting today, so we should be able to find that out very shortly. Also, there's discussions with Contact Energy around sponsorship, plus Hub Charities, plus AET Gaming Trust. But we were at, as of today, we're at 1,275,948. Of our plot, and our aim is 1.646 million, so we're getting there. Our committed funds as at today is 385,790. So our net budget as of today is 888,158. So just a bit of an update on our finances there. Now explaining how we've increased our project whānau. So obviously we've got David here as project sponsor. We've now got Gordy in as our project owner. I'm sitting here as project manager. We have trustees, Rory from the original, the mind behind, or the drivers behind this project, Rory McClellan, and we've got Linda Gray, and we've also got David Ritchie here as well. So welcome to him all. Online we have Kitty Brown from Okaha, so a big welcome to her. And we should also have Trent as well, but he may not be quite there yet. Anderson maybe have some technical difficulty. So he's actually our construction partner. So again, we're really doing a collaborative approach, and this is why we're really coming here today, is to show you what that collaboration has come in terms of some amendments to the developed design. Also should welcome Jaden as well. So we've got a really exciting partnership there as well, that Jaden's now coming along to our project team meeting. So we've got a better conduit between the community board and the project as well. So that's really awesome. What I sort of thought the format for this presentation could be is if we took a handover to Rory and Kitty for a bit of a input into where we're at with the design work. And then I've actually got a wee presentation because the lady who's actually behind the drawings of this new design couldn't be here today. So we've actually got a YouTube presentation of that as well. And then I'll come back, give you some more information, and then open to questions. How does that sound? Thank you.
Jaden first, does it?
Yeah, Jaden, you can go first if you like.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I've attended one meeting so far, and it's been really, really good to see what the work group is doing. Obviously, you're going to see a new design from what's in the report. What it shows is that this group has really put their minds together and figured out ways to do this within the constraints of the budget. It's a really great example of what happens when you're bringing council, business owners and iwi together. It's when you see the design, you're going to see that it really tells the story of the area right through it, from right through to before colonisation, before European arrival, which is really cool to see. But no, they're just an awesome group, and I think they've done an amazing job. Looking forward to working with you moving forward.
Awesome, thanks, James. Handing over to Rory.
On behalf of the trust, we're really impressed with the final design that we've ended up with, and really impressed with the way that the group has worked. So I think we can be proud of the CLC staff and the way they've got it all together. And it's been a big undertaking, like we're meeting every fortnight, and there's no stone unturned as we're going. So it's been impressive to work with. But as far as the trust is concerned, it's meeting all the objectives that we set out to achieve. The main thing was to open up the river to the town centre and try and get the town centre down into the area, and supporting what we've got to offer, especially the Riverside or the businesses operating on the river, but to try and give beautify the bottom end of Harvard Street, and just try and give the town centre a good shot on the arm. Like it's hopefully the catalyst, well, I know it will be the catalyst for a lot of other great things to happen in the area. Biking is such a big part of it. Where the trust sees it as we're in it for the long game, so we'll just keep on knocking away at different parts of it to make it better all the time. As Kristen was saying, we're trying to talk with contact to get a few of the partners involved and get the tracks linked up to the linger and dive from the bridge. And the way it's been designed, there's so many opportunities that there's such a big area to call the Riverside Park. Like it could extend all the way up to here with different things that we could be doing. So at the immediate area, there's playgrounds that can be used. There's events that can be done over on the flood bank, and made use of that. But what we see at the moment is something that's really functional. It's got the amenities that we need. It's got the shelter, and it's got the good access to the river. So I think it's covered everything that we were looking for. So I appreciate everything that the recipe have done so far to get it to happen. Thanks.
Handing over to you, Kitty. Can you hear us okay over there? You look like you're at night time.
Yeah. Kia ora koutou. I might preempt the presentation of the design with the presentation that I've prepared if we go with me before the YouTube presentation.
Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, spoiler alert, but all good.
It'll be a spoiler alert.
Oh, do you want to go after? You're more than welcome.
I'll go after if that's okay, because I reckon I don't want to spoil any surprises.
Okay, all right. How about we go to the YouTube and then we'll come back straight to you. How does that sound?
Good.
Okay. All right. Cue YouTube preferences then. And I'll hand you out the side.
As long as we're coming through the corners.
Sound.
Just sorting sound.
Wonderful.
Yeah, get yourself comfortable.
It's just building the anticipation. That's what I would do.
Here we go.
In June, the downtown CBD Alexandra, connecting people and the heart of the Australians.
Yeah.
Also to improve connection and sort of my understanding. And I'm going to be presenting to you the Alexandra Riverside Park design review. So just to reiterate, the project's aim is to regenerate and rejuvenate the downtown CBD Alexandra by connecting people and the heart of the pedestrian area to the river. Also to improve connection and access via the cyclists and walkers and local networks of tracks. So in this project, we've really focused towards this Kamoana Hei, which is the junction of the Kuiva River, Matao, and the Manuhiriki rivers. Such a wonderful place to be, as you all know. So it's just about taking these unique landscapes and kind of designing to enhance and emanate that beauty through the design. There are some kind of details that we're looking into, planting, signage. We're looking into enclosed seating to kind of create these semi-private spaces where people can sit and enjoy the space. And recessed garden seating, which is kind of a traditional gathering space for people to come together and enjoy the space and enjoy nature. Another feature in the bottom is this resin surface, which we're going to create some patterns out of on the ground. It's a really cool product which absorbs sunlight during the day, and at night it is luminous, so it kind of lights the pathway. This is Alexandra Riverside Park. So as you can see, the design integrates people into it to show how it's activated with food trucks to bring people into the space, kind of open performance area where children or bands, live acts can stage. There's a platform viewing area, and that leads down to a ramp, which leads to the river. And hopefully how we've designed it is so these spaces are separate, but they're kind of interrelated. Here's a key showing the space a bit better, as we've closed off the entrance, which is number 9, and opened a new entrance point, which is at number 5. So this improves the safety of the park, which was originally designed to be on the street, on Target Street, is now in the car park. So keeping the pedestrians and cars separate, which is really important. So I'll just go through the numbers. Number 1 is the shed. Number 2 is the car parking. Number 3 is where the bicycle racks are. 4 is the plaza space, which has seating and gardens. 5 is the new road entrance. 6 is the toilet blocks, which there is going to be potential for another toilet block, which is going to go in place of the truck, which is the right truck. So it will be turned 90 degrees and placed here if there is a second toilet. All of the plumbing will be supplied for that already. Number 7 is a raised viewing platform. Number 8 is the floating pontoon. 9 is the existing entry, which is close to cars. 10 is a pedestrian crossing to safely move people from the town and across into the plaza. 11 is a multi-art installation. And 12 is a concrete ramp to the water. here shows this space a little bit further detailed. So you can see from a plan perspective, kind of how people exist in the space and enjoy the space. And hopefully we make the most of it as it is for people to enjoy and be in. A design specific for this as well is the paving pattern. So we've created kind of a pathway through the space, which is representing of the rivers and this Kamwana Hei where the rivers converge together. So it kind of flows people through the space and flows them around, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. This design aims to present the atmosphere of the wonderful space that you live in or that you holiday in or that you're visiting is Alexandra. So it's meant to be accessible for a range of diverse people and allow everyone to flow towards the river, excuse the pun, and celebrate Alexandra for what it is.
Right. So that was Annie Zipper, who is a subcontractor to Anderson fencing and earthworks and Neville Anderson. Neville Stewart, thank you. Too many Andersons there, landscaping. So she wasn't here today, but we thought she's done such a lot of work in this. Had so much mahi, we encouraged her to do this. So yeah, big shout out for her for giving us that presentation. Now can we go to Kitty? I think she's got something for us too. Kia ora, Kitty.
Okay, kia ora koutou. Yeah, I did make a little presentation to show this morning, just to support my kōrero, so that you could all have something to look at too. So if I share my screen, does that show up well for everyone in the room? Does it come onto your biggie screen?
Yes, Wayne's nodding. Go ahead.
Yes, okay, we got nodding, cool. Well, tēnā te mihi kia koutou katoa, ko Kitty Brown tōku ingoa. My name is Kitty Brown and I represent Ōkaha, which represents mana whenua for this southern part of Te Waipounamu. We work with Runaka from Waiha, which is near Waimate, all the way down to Oraka Aparima, which is right down near Riverton in Colette Bay. So all of our southern mana whenua are interested in this project because, of course, Kamwana Hei is in the shared area of takiwa for all of those people. Oh, can I just do that? That makes it big. Here we go. Then I go there. So, toi tō mairaki me te huka papa, me te huka rere, me te ua, he aitaka nā raki I a papa ko ia te taru ka tupu ai I te raumati. Morning mist, ice, snow and the rain are the descendants of raki, our sky kaitiaki. And from all of these waters, the shoots will grow in the summertime. That's just a little whakatauki to frame, I guess, the intent for mana whenua in this project around elevating the water and just bringing people closer to the water and making the water part of the experience of this place so that we can all be further connected to the environment. So Rākai Hautu, I'm just going to give you a little bit of the stories of the place, I guess. And one of the tupuna that we're bringing forward in this design is Rākai Hautu, who was the captain of Te Waka Uruwao. Te Waka Uruwao was known to us now as a star waka, which means that it is a waka that was sailing and navigating so long ago that it's now passed into the realms of legend. But what we remember is that Te Waka Uruwao brought the Waitaha people here to Te Waipounamu, and the first ancestor that got off that waka was the captain Rakai Hotu, and he stepped onto the land with his big digging stick, his core, and he went about setting up all of the waterways of Te Waipounamu. And we know these as Te Punawai o Rakai Hotu, the great waterways of Te Waipounamu that were dug by Rakai Hotu. And those stories connect us to the landscape and give our people the ways of navigating throughout Te Waipounamu through the names of the places that Rakai Hotu left on the land. A story that is really close to our hearts in this particular area is the one of Kai Amio. So Kai Amio was wahine Kaitahu who was captured by an evil ogre called Kopuwai. And Kopuwai, after this extraordinary story of Kai Amio escaping him, she took a party back and they put Kopuwai to rights, and he was forever set in stone on the Old Man Range, which we have an obelisk up there now called Kopuwai, and it can be seen from the place where Alexandra Riverside Park will be built. So we're looking to bring this story out to the fore as well, because of the placement of the site, and because hopefully once all the willows are gone, we'll be able to see right up onto Old Man Range and see Kopuwai standing there, and uplift this story again. So yeah, I guess that this all comes together to say that there are many old trails across the landscape that we can remember through centering our attention on this site, Kamuanahaihai. Kopuwai up on the hill, the rivers flowing through that were very valuable and important for mahi kakai, yeah, so and also the idea of the pathways coming together now, because we've got pedestrians, we've got cycles, we've got all these different pathways that converge on this site. People travelling, people moving, and people on their pathways. So here's the site, Kamuanahaihai, which is the junction of Te Mata'au and the Manuhirikia. And it is a site of significance for mana whenua Kaitahu. It's recorded on Kahuru Manu, our cultural map of Te Waipounamu, where we remember our old place names, the ones that have been overlaid over time with different names, and then overlaid again with more names. But these ones are ones that we hold true in our stories, so we can remember that is Kamuanahaihai. And yeah, I put in this little map of all the place names that we can see along Te Mata'au from Belcluta along the river that way. Just to show some of the red ones are marked, all our old place names, and the traditional knowledge that is held in those place names and the stories for Kaitahu Whānui. So we did a lot of consultation with mana whenua around this place and the potential of the design, and some of the things that they advised us to bring forth in terms of the design principles were about whakamanuhiritaka, which is our kupu for welcoming people. So this is a place of arrival and a departure point for people visiting, but also a place for the community to welcome its guests and share stories with people who live there and people who are travelling through. Yeah, and again, Kamuanahaihai is a significant place for mana whenua. Oh, site images, you know the place, there it is. And yes, I just wanted to drive you through some of the mana whenua kind of elements or Māori design elements that we're looking to put into the plan. That's the oversight which you just saw on the lovely presentation from Annie, who we've been working with. But I guess we have a few just kind of like major strategies that we're trying to focus on for this design. And one of those is a collaboration between our organisation Okaha, which is a design entity in Central Otago District Council. And it's around bringing some Māori, what we call ahua or vibes for the bilingual among us, that can be integrated with the Central Otago design package. So you'll start to see some of these beautiful designs rolling out in your community. And it's just to, to integrate some designs from mana whenua that tell stories of kaitahu whānui. And you'll see in the sign panel here, we're looking at integrating some of the designs from the Central Otago District Council work into the pieces and the parts of the Riverside Park project. So here's an example with signage, but we'll look to try and bring some of these designs into the vibe of the whole place. Pathway, you see that pathway in the design, that's the one that Annie was talking about on the presentation as having the special resin, for want of a better term, that goes into the concrete design of the pathway. So it will have a daytime identity, which we would like to bring in some Māori patination, but amazingly, it will have this nighttime identity that can be brought forward with this resin product that is actually drawn from phosphorescence in the natural environment, and have that kind of cool nighttime identity that we can all be proud of as well. And then, is that my last slide? Yeah, no, go back. That one. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh, I'll get to go back to the end. Last one, there it is. There. Oh, sorry, I have to click through to the last slide.
You're welcome, Kitty.
Here we go. So this is the last slide, and it's just around what you heard from Annie is a Māori art installation in her presentation, what we would call a pou whenua or a cultural marker. We are so excited to be putting a pou whenua in this place. You can see this drawing down here is a lovely kind of mock-up that Annie did to show us how tall it could be. This is at 6 meters, and you can see the gradient from down at the end of Talbot Street, and then if we go up that pesky slope, we can see from the town this pou whenua poking up to welcome us and draw us down to the end where the Riverside Park will be. We're still working with artists to actually assign and commission the right people or person to this particular pou whenua. There's a bit of a process that we go through to make those decisions. So I've put in some placeholder designs of potential sculptural works that have come from across Te Waipounamu, just to give you an example of the kind of thing that we're looking at. It's a large, impactful sculptural work down there at the end of Talbot Street. Ka rawe, I will stop sharing that, and thank you for your time. Ka mihi.
Thank you so much. That was really awesome, and probably shows the significance, right?
Yeah, thanks for
It is in the area, so kia ora koutou. So before I just open up for questions, there's a couple more points to run you through. You probably had a lot of information now. So we're definitely keeping the car park capacity the same. That's really important, especially with the warehouse commitments to the resource consent. So I wanted to just say that will still be retained, as well as their trolley as well. We'll be directing the truck traffic. We're in discussion as well. The main user is we've identified as the warehouse, but certainly trying to get those trucks movements around and into the centre. So the roading engineers are working on that. making contact with them. We're also starting to have discussions around the naming of the site. So that is something that you have a naming policy, or we have a naming policy, and we'll certainly be coming back to the Vincent Community Board, and we've been talking with the trust and around some suggestions. So we're formulating that, and we'll come back to the board on that. We are also, excuse me, looking at phasing the construction as well. So we've still got a bit of testing to do on that slope to make the design of the path to go down, and we're waiting for that. We don't want to waste any more sort of time. We want to get cracking. So just a heads up that we are starting to look at a phased approach where we would be getting rid of the trees, making that formula of that new access way into the car park and shutting the car park off and setting the site up. But as you see in the main part of the report is that we're asking you to consider the adjusted design. And you'll see in that adjusted design that while we're making this design, we're constantly looking at the budget and making sure we all understand the importance of keeping within the budget, if not under, if we can achieve that. And that is the real beauty of working in a collaboration with the construction and the designer. We're really seeing some good steps in that direction, and we believe we can do that design within the budget. We also see that this new design is going to be less disruption to the public during construction, and also means that it reduces construction costs because we're not operating in a main road that would have traffic management all the way through that. And also the main thing is that we're all in support of this, so that it is definitely a collaborative approach to this design. So I'll open now for any questions.
Just before that, just to be clear on the tree removal. So the original consent was to remove trees sort of the width of Tarbert Street, but the RSC are quite keen to remove them from the bridge all the way down. So that's probably likely to happen. So that'll all be taken down as part of the project, but just how we when and how we replant that area yet to be determined. But that will likely to go once, just so you don't get a surprise one morning when you wake up and see trees along there.
See the river now.
Yeah, we actually the river houses.
Yeah, and sorry, another thing that just came to my mind as well is around communication, and we want to really strive in this project to have some really good communication, not only with the businesses, the neighbours, obviously our key stakeholders as well. So we're actually going to run a bit of a campaign to push for people to connect with us via the main page, a Let's Talk page. You're probably all now familiar with that, but promote that and have a space on it where you can actually enter in your email address, and we're actually pushing those notifications out to those people. So we're going to run a wee campaign there of saying, hey, we would like to have your emails, so that we can, if you're interested, we can push that information out rather than just sort of putting them on Facebook and things like that. So we're actually pushing that information. Also utilising the news as well for those who may not be comfortable with the internet and email push outs. Thank you.
The stories Kitty was referring to, I'm assuming there's going to be some panel interpretation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also interpretation panel.
Just out of curiosity, sure. How long does the special reason last? I think that sounds quite exciting and quite unique. Is there a lifetime on it, or is it?
I'll need to come back to you on that. Definitely Annie did a lot of research in this area. And I believe that was part of their scope for the project is around maintenance, that we're not just creating a site and then having a huge amount of maintenance, but I can come back to you on that, on the lifespan.
Yeah, about 5 to 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
To be fair, it is a new product.
Yeah.
So we'll be not the first guinea pigs, but we'll be early adopters, I guess.
Just to connect that with the previous presentation we had about this night sky, and they're concerned about this hill going up. What do you know what lumens are? You know what you have?
So actually that's a topic on our next meeting, is to review that. While this is not what my understanding was talking with our planning team is, while this area isn't immediately going to be a precinct for the night sky, it's something we should be considering within this project. So it's a matter to bring the whole project team up to date with not only our public places policy, but also the fact that the night sky is in there. So that is a difference. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks for that presentation. moving from a 1 in 20 gradient to 1 in 12 gradient on the pathway, to what extent was that going to affect the less able users or people in the community?
So the gradient shift was within the last amended plans that we have on the back. This one is actually making it more accessible. I can't, apologies, off the top of my head, remember the gradient, but it was to become accessible. It's also proposed to be a concrete pathway. So we're actually, because we're working with the contractor and we're working with the designer, we're actually getting that collaboration to go, well, we can't afford, you know, like a metal plate that was originally metal ramp down. What can we afford? But this is all going to depend. We need to get some test pits done, not pits, sorry, bores to bring it up so we can see what the level of the ground compaction is, and then that will drive the design down. But we have shifted from a better gradient. You'll see it's quite a long path. We've also shifted that it's not sort of centre of the road and going down that way. We're actually now working with the contours of the land. And that also goes with the platform. You'll see the contours of the land underneath, but the platform is actually shifted to align with the contours, so we're not shifting as much ground. But I can come back to you again with the exact gradient, but it is one that is accessible now.
Thank you.
We talked about that last time, the 1 in 12 as well. Normal tracks and things are all built with these days. The 1 in 20 was going to give us such a long big track that it really wasn't achievable.
Okay, so the 1 in 12 would be with concrete and not with gravel.
Yeah.
There's a mention here of gravel.
That's in mention.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at the new plan, so if you don't, yep, so number 12 is concrete ramp to water.
Yeah, okay, so that,
Yep.
that overwrites what we've got.
Correct. So what we're doing today is we're presenting this hot off the press. That's why you received it and not attached to the report, and we're presenting it this way. So what we're asking today is your support that we go ahead with this amended developed design.
Thank you.
And your linear meters on that, look, space security, you don't need on that. It's not-
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I guess the other question, and this might be too early to answer this, is the pontoon,
Yes.
which I think is fabulous, but
Yes.
water safety around the pontoon.
Yep, we're thinking about that too.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. It's proposed to be a plastic-based pontoon. So when the river is running high, we're going to create provisions that we can actually pull it out of the water and bring it out. Also, we're looking at, you'd see around the top of the area that we've actually got fencing going up, and there could even be a possibility that we could have a gate there that we close off. Obviously, you have to have a user responsibility there because we can't fence off the whole area. People can go around, but absolutely, and we've even talked of maybe having a lifesaver that we can throw out, but it is going to have to be user, just using common sense.
I think this is really exciting and it's great collaborative work, and I can see how enthusiastic Rory is about it, which is awesome. And I guess this board and this community really appreciate the effort that has gone into remaining within budget too, because that is something that's really important. And you can have the best plans that then you see the bottom line, but actually I don't think we've skimmed on anything with this. I think it looks amazing and will be such a wonderful focal point for the town and down that end of town, and then to be bringing those EV stories in as well is something that's really exciting for the sport. So congratulations to the community, so that's brilliant.
When do we start seeing dirt moved?
I knew that would be your next question. So as I said, that we're trying to do that in a phased approach. So once we've got the support from you, and we've collected all of those people who are interested in the projects, we don't want to just start doing the work without notifying everybody. And we've also got to make sure that all our consents, because we've got ORC, not only CODC as well, make sure we tick all those boxes, but we're trying to and also get a contract in place for that bit of work. So it is watch this space, but we're still really pushing forward towards the end of this year, or the beginning of next to be completed. We're really trying hard for that.
Just a question, and it's probably not for you, maybe. So if the ORC wanted the trees cleared from the bridge Whose budget is it? So
They'll cover.
that opens up some of your earlier thoughts about what you could do from here to bridge.
Statutory.
On that, James, given your newly appointed liaison to the group, I wonder if you would like to move that the report be received and that we approve the adjusted developed design. Thank you. And seconded, thank you, Tracy. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Yay.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kitty online and Crystal.
Thank you.
Still here as well.
Well done, everyone. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
Exciting to be progressing next. Moving on to page 69, Wayne, you are going to approve the amendment to the standing orders to make way for technologies.
Yes, nowhere near as exciting as the
Not quite so.
No.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, that's right. It's probably useful. It's useful, yeah. So I've had this report, it's read, and, essentially, this has been a thing since COVID. There was a brief period where it went away and you couldn't be counted for it. And then it came back again with Cyclone Gabriel in North Island. That's set to expire in October. However, there has been new legislation that says if it's in your standing orders, then you can have your remote members coming as Quorum. And you'll see in the report there's 4 little changes that we have to make. So if everyone is happy with, I guess, with the idea that people can join and become as Quorum online, then about it. If there's any questions, I don't know if there's any questions.
Yep. Is just, I'm presuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that IS is happy and as an organisation, we're 100% happy with that being from an IS point of view.
Yeah.
Can Nathan cover
Can
the
Nathan,
possibility of somebody appearing that is not in fact who they appear to be?
Just that we're completely on top of that. So,
Yeah, security effectively.
yeah, the security side of things.
Well, it's essentially as it is right now.
Yeah.
And most of the time, everyone has their camera on anyway, so you can see that they're.
With AI, that doesn't give us any comfort.
No, well,
It's just something that we may have to be aware of in the future. So scared, you've got something about that.
If the board were concerned about that, you could ask the member to speak and recognise their voice, so that there would be a way to mitigate any risk.
Even that is not a guarantee in the future, so.
Oh, I know.
So the kicker here really is that we change them from not just looking but voting. It really.
well, no, it's no, you can still vote.
Still vote,
You always
it's just you weren't counted in
Count it on the Quorum.
to make the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just given what you see happening, and so, and I'm comfortable with it, but I'm just making sure that that's just a little bit of a Nathan question.
Yeah.
So
Through the chair, Nathan could guarantee that without artificial intelligence, so that is.
I guess it's on our risk register.
Yeah.
and the next question that I have is, and part of it is actually in the standing orders as well, when I was reading through, is that we don't want this to become the norm. Having people around the table is still the preferred option, but it does allow us to. Yeah. So I appreciate that, but that's something that I think is really important, that we don't become like universities where no one actually attends because they all attend online. It's really important. And also so that we've got the members of the public, that they can actually see our faces in their head. We're not just all online while they're sitting at our table. So,
Almost the culture that we generate for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, I'm very happy to move it.
Cool, thank you, Tracy. Seconded, thank you, Tony. So we'll receive a report, agrees to amend the standing orders to allow for remote participants to be counted as Quorum and update these standing orders. As indicated, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Wayne. That will mean that, even if you're on an overseas holiday,
No excuses.
no excuse. You'll want to be here, you will.
Timeline. I'll stop you.
Comes into force on the month of August.
No, I was gonna say, overseas holidays, if, you know.
No, it doesn't matter if it's middle of the night. You can
Yeah,
get up in your dressing gown.
we want my responsibility.
Perfect. We now move to page 158 for our interim Vincent financial report, and we welcome Paul, whose last name is Morris. I didn't know, I only knew as Paul Morris, and Donna. Paul is the new CFO, for example, for those of you who haven't met him previously.
So I take the paper as being read. So this is an interim financial report for the 30th of June 2024. What that means is these are only draft financials. So these are still subject to change as we work through our final adjustments. But it's better off giving it to you now as a draft cut rather than waiting until we finish our annual report in October. So they won't change significantly, but they may change a little bit. Just to give you that heads up. So overall, there is a favourable operating variance of 895,000 against the revised budget. Of this, 2.4 million is favourable revenue. Still continuing to drive this is your Johnston Parks sales from stage 3 of $1.3 million. And then you've also got some grants and subsidies, internal interest revenue and reserve contributions, which are also higher than budget. Expenditure has an unfavourable variance of $1.5 million. Driving this is the cost of sales, so the other side of your land sales at Dunstan Park, stage 3. If you balance those out, there is, I think, a unfavourable variance of $287,000, but that's just a continuation of stage 1, 2, and 3 over the last 3 years. So unfortunately, they missed last year's cut and have all ended up in this financial year. So at present, you're sitting at a net profit of about $4.5 million on that project, with stage 4 still to complete.
And not much cost to come back, revenue from stage 4.
There'll be some cost involved in that. There will still be the development contributions that will need to be paid, as well as the groundworks for the roading and also the pipe works for that as well. So that will just be netted off through your land sales. But that's more of a question for the property clearer to give a status update on the part of the project.
I think in July, comments on that, was there only just a ceiling to go on stage 4, which is mainly developers cost?
No.
Dunstan. Yes, it's, that's the last thing to happen, so just waiting for the selling season, and then they'll be applying for 2 more CB in total.
Yeah.
So all of the other construction works is completed.
Yeah, and most of that costs for the developer for ceiling?
Well, it wraps up in our agreement around, we own the land, they do the infrastructure work. The balance is out through the agreement through land sales, so I'm not sure exactly what the balance is like now.
So when we realise the land sales will attach the cost of sales at the same time, so the cost of any development on stage 4 has not been recognised in the cost of sales at present. So that sits on our balance sheet until they're realised at the same time. So outside of that, you've got some other unfavourable areas. You've got your rates expense, which will remain for the rest of the year. Your staff costs, cost allocations and professional fees. So the staff cost is the result of adjusting for living wage increases. There is some offset of charging out through property team through cost of allocations. However, the cost of allocations from our general internal overhead charges is high, which is driving the variance there. And this is due to increases in our insurance costs and our information services costs, as well as a few other miscellaneous activities. Just driving that. So capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $906,000, with 71% of the budget being spent each date. So of this, the large portion is actually in the Parks and Reserves area, with all the projects being at different stages from being started to not being started. So when we do the carry forwards and forecast process coming up, we'll be making a real big assessment on whether they are actually going to be started in the coming financial year, or the current financial year, or whether they need to be reassessed as part of the LT. So property has an unfavourable variance of $740,000, with the Alexandra Community Centre project being completed. And the Tarbert Street building project started in June, and that works alongside the Alexandra Library refurbishment project. Are there any questions? Questions on that? No.
Did you want to go through the reserves?
Yeah, I need a hand to understand what we're doing, because it looks like it's sort of an accounting based. I mean, we've got an infrastructure which has got a negative, like the pools have got negative $2.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, you know, look at that, which is obviously the justification. It's going to become a little bit of a conversation about who's got what reserves.
Yeah.
So if we continue on that regime, does the pool just keep continuing to grow in negative balance? It just defies a wee bit of common sense, really, doesn't it? It's not on accounting, but from a point of view, I mean, we're never going to pay a debt. So from a management accounts point of view, sort of, we can't get a handle on it.
So what that is well, what we do is at the moment when we do capital expenditure, it goes into the reserves and it puts it into the deficit. The other side of that is we actually fund the depreciation through collection rates, which also drops to the reserve, which down pays your capital expenditure. But also being incurred on that deficit is interest expense. So that happens no matter what. So depending on what the capital works program is for an asset, it will either get down paid through the reserve using other reserves to offset that cost, or it will never get repaid because the capital program is that substantial that it will continually go up and the depreciation funding will never pay it down. So when you look at it, you should be assessing whether that, when you do a project, whether there is the funding and the other reserves to offset it, to be able to fund it, or whether you need to be looking at doing an internal loan, for instance, using your 2111 General Development Reserve, which is your general reserve and has a forecast of $6 million of surplus in there, to actually internally loan fund that activity for reduce your interest expense, but will show as a zero debt, well, we won't have a deficit or a surplus in that pool.
So your 2111 general reserve is effectively just the offsets of those. That doesn't represent any physical asset in your general reserve?
No. So that is where your land sales revenue is currently sitting. And there'll be a few other things in there as well.
What about future? What is the current asset that's owned that's not sold? Where does that sit? Is that in general reserve?
So
the general reserve just the accounting offset of the
so that's where it washes up to at the end of the year. So it will, when you do your land sales, it will sit in the general reserve, and then you can ask to take money out of that general reserve and apply it to another area. So if it's in land sales, the policy says that you can actually allocate that to a certain activity, and it just hasn't been applied, is my understanding.
Okay.
And that's where a report would come to us, and the option would be to rates fund or to use general reserves to pay for said
activity. Yeah. Like for instance, in the future, the Omacare Hub, and that's being funded 3 different ways. So the $1 million, I think it's $1 million. So you have a third from a loan, a third from reserve funds, and a third coming out of your general reserves. So the loan would come out of your general reserves as well, but it will be repaid over time, whereas the other third would just come straight out of it. So that's a decision that the board has made. And so it's just more of those decisions that we probably need to be considering when we're looking at projects for the LTP. Or any future projects that might be outside of the plan.
Just let that at the edge of my financial literacy. Okay.
Just add something to that, Madam Chair. These deficit reserves represent effective, in some of these cases, cash out the door. If the capital program has been done, we've spent the money.
Yeah.
While we treat these as internal loans, effectively, the council has to go and borrow that money to undertake the work where the cash isn't available.
Yes.
So the concept of the reserve will continue to grow and grow and grow means the other side of that, to match that, the debt continues to grow and grow. So there comes to a point where council or community will need to sit down and make a decision that says, well, we can't continue to grow these deficits. We actually have to put a program of repayment in, and as Donna said, in terms of things like funded depreciation, where you might fund your depreciation as revenues coming back in, you might have to do that just to repay the debt that's been incurred to do the work now, rather than, because effectively what it's saying is we're doing the work now outside of the cash that we need to do the work. So you can kind of do that, but there is a repayment plan that needs to be developed, and I think that's part of a long-term plan process that we need to look at our as a council and as a community board, what your debt, ultimate debt levels are. And at the moment, you're kind of sitting at roughly about $3 million deficit on some specific projects, but you've got about $6 million in the general reserve. So, you know, one of the recommendations might be that you take some of that general reserve money and pay down your deficits in your specific, in this case, the recreation and culture area. So those decisions have to be looked at, and a program over the next LTP cycle developed so that it deals with the whole the levels of debt that ultimately the council have to carry for all of the other programs of work that it does. I mean, there are limits in terms of the amount of debt that the council can carry. So we have to look at it across the organisation. And, you know, it might be that some reserves might be transferred to clean up others, or it might be that there could be you know, we need to start a repayment program. So,
because that's what caught my attention, I guess, when I looked at the bottom line from start of 22 to the end of this financial year, we've gone back, we got up over $1 million, gone from 6 million to 5 million. I think we haven't got long to go. We're at zero.
Yeah. And you probably will finish the year at in the 6 million, because you have projects like the Molyneux Stadium, for instance, which isn't happening in the 23-24 financial year, and I'm not too sure where we're progressing through with that project into the 24-25 year, or whether we're going to be moving that into the LTP. And of course, that's about 1.4 million of your deficit at the moment. So there's things like that and that's why we give to you the annual report with the plan budgets and our forecasts, just to be able to give you that bit of movability, so you can see all those decisions, what your clean starting point is through to the estimated function.
That 1.4 comes from borrowing.
So that 1.4 will be borrowing, as you see, it's a deficit here. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Vincent?
Thank you.
So our recommendation is that the report be received. Somebody to move, thank you, Roger. Seconded, thank you, Tracy. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So Mayor's report today, because he is not here. So move to my Chair's report. And quite a lot's happened since our last meeting, 6 weeks ago. And lots of it is going to be doing your thunder trace, plenty of tons of stuff together. So sorry, I just glossed over those parts. Like many of you, I attended the Winterstellar opening that involved the movie that they have made, along with a live performance from Liz Conway, which was just amazing, magic, listening to live music there, and it was neat to see how many families were along and it taking their kids as well. I felt bad because I did one at home. Yeah. I probably shouldn't have. Next time. I attended the Alexandra Community House AGM, which was great. They are continuing the fantastic work that they are doing in that space and making sure that the building will be around for many, many years to come, undertaking what is quite a substantial maintenance program. Went to a Thompson's Creek wetland visit with MPs Joseph Mooney and Miles Anderson, and then repeated the exercise the following week with the Mr. Andrew Foggart, which was fascinating. It was so beautiful out there. It looked like a Graham Sydney painting. We got the best weather. It was absolutely amazing. The work that's happening there. When we went with Joseph Mooney and Miles Anderson, we also called into the school and saw what they were doing in their tunnel house, which is really cool. It's neat that the year 8 students, I think it is, from Invercargill Primary School, are going down and doing the water sampling every month at the wetlands and then sending that information through, which is really cool to get that community buy-in. And I'm sure Tracy will fill you in a general of the technical details of it. I participated in an LGNZ Induction 2025 interview type thing, which was really interesting, just talking about how elected members are prepared for their role when they first step into it and how we can improve those processes going forward to 2025 elections. So I took on board some of the information that you guys have fed back over the years, as well as my own experiences and some from around the country, because in some places it's done really well and in other places newly elected members are left to flounder somewhat. So hopefully there'll be some improvements in that space. Attended the Otago Regional Council meeting. So first up, lunch with the elected members and staff from there, and then sit in on a presentation from Simon Upton, who is the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, and it was really interesting. It was very cool. I took lots of notes. I'll put them together in an email and send it out to you guys. Fascinating stuff, and he is a very enthusiastic presenter. It was well done. And then last week, alongside Chief Executive Peter and also me, Tim, I attended a meeting in Christchurch between Otahu and a number of South Island mayors and chief executives about where the water space is going. I've sent you an update that I worked very hard on because Morgan wasn't available to help me. So that's why it's not that technologically advanced. But there is a lot happening in that space as well, and although it is a massive problem-based cost, I was somewhat heartened by the position that Otago and Southland are in compared to some others, and hopefully we can have some more forward progress in that space over the coming months, because it is a priority. It can't just sit bubbling away on the back burner. That is my verbal report. I'm happy to move. So, Ice and Lime, I did go to Ice and Lime too. Thank you, Jazzy. We should have had a look at the Ice and Lime room. Most of us went. It was really great. Just having a squiz at what was happening. Di would probably be horrified to get you that apparently there are more people in the ice hockey club now than in the rugby club, which I thought was telling. Bodes well for the Winter Olympics coming up as we pump more young people into that curling and ice skating space. The quality of the ice is apparently now some of the best in New Zealand. And I was pleased to see yesterday morning when I dropped my kids at school, there were kids on the rink in the rain, which wouldn't have happened previously. So fantastic.
certainly going past at night, morning, doesn't matter, there's quite on the office, it's busy.
It is busy, and I really like, I don't know how many of you have driven into Alex at night lately, but it's like a huge beacon that says Alex is open with no impact on the night sky for Andy. I'm happy to move it there, please. Thank you, Gavin, second that, all those in favour? Against carries, and we move now to our members' reports. Jane, if you would like to finish off.
Right, so I also attended the Winterstellar movie opening, childless, but did take summer along. So I counted that as a date night, but it was just great to see all the work that they're doing and where funding for them is being used. I attended a Alexandra Council Social Services meeting where both the Mayor and Peter presented the presentation on distributisation, and also got an update on where things are at with the Abbeyfield plan they're working on at the moment through ACOS. So it's really cool to see that that's moving forward, and that there'll be good news coming out on that hopefully by the end of the year. I attended the distributisation workshop on behalf of VCB. Attended my first Riverside Park project team meeting, which was really exciting and quite cool to see what goes on in the background and beyond just the report that we saw today. And I think it's a really good example of what we could all be more involved in with this digitisation conversation. So I'll keep reporting back on that and trying to show the positives of that. And also went along to the Iceland line to have a look at the roof and everything else that they do, because it turns out they do a bit more than just ice skating. So it was really cool and informative.
Thank you, Jen. Yes.
Attended a current meeting this month, and also like Tamer, I'll rattle off the same things. So attended a meeting for the Manihira catchment group firstly with the two ministers, and then by the MPs, and then by Minister Holgard. Super exciting to reinforce the excellent work that the MCG group is doing and obtaining the funding of $1.9 million. Yes, if anyone who hasn't walked along, if you would like to see it, you can walk along the rail trail between Omikau and Tiger Hill, and you can actually see it from there, and it's quite impressive. There is also a Facebook page if you want to see stuff, and there's some amazing aerial photography of getting a good picture. Also attended the ORC meeting lunch, and then listened to the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. I agree with Tamer wholeheartedly, very, very interesting. It was fantastic to visit Iceland Line and to be hosted by the ice hockey, Alexandra Ice Hockey, which is the Flames. 140 members, pretty outstanding, to be honest, and it's growing exponentially. And I would encourage everyone to get down there if you haven't had a look. And I also attended a Manihira governance group meeting in relation to the same project as before. So, thank you.
Listen, Lauren, have they got a history going to Australia or something, have they? Is it Australia? Which is one.
Yeah. So the one other thing that I think we should mention, things in the community, at some point Finn Butcher is going to be representing our small town on the world stage in the Olympics. So whenever he pops up, let's go Finn Butcher.
It's quite a good post on Facebook. The fact is that he's going to win a medal with really preempted his success by naming Butcher Dam after.
Yes. So yes, let's hope that he gets success.
Thank you.
So community meetings for Blossom Festival, Pride Dunstan, the Pride Rugby Club, and also on a wee subgroup looking at Promote Dunstan's got to revisit our constitution and review incorporate societies. That's shown in the bureaucracy which makes Wayne's standing orders changes look like a little part. Hearings panel, we've had two plan changes. One for the Naseby Night Sky, which has been approved by council, and then the second one was the on the historic precincts in the district, which has a profound effect on what's going on in Clyde. Design guidelines and this interesting stuff, and again that's been passed and something was just going in the appeal process. So, the hearings panel is still busy, even though the August meeting has been cancelled, which doesn't happen that often, but it has been. It's just things have slowed down a little bit. I don't think they've slowed down from the planning department's perspective, but and as of tomorrow, Tracy will be joining us on the panel. So we, including myself and Tracy, and we'll be rotating. That's coming to council because that's it's pretty well, I think, pretty that here. And I'm up to my neck in Blossom Festival, basically. So that's 7.5 weeks away and counting. So it's pretty full off. But good news is we finally found somebody to build floats.
Yeah. Florence.
The floats. We had a shed. We just didn't have a shed, and then, well, thanks to the council's start negotiating with Wastebusters, I've got access to the old Wastebusters shed up there on Boundary Road. So a few strings were pulled, and a couple of others were looking for it too. So it's a sign of a very positive economy. There is very few empty buildings in our town. Very few.
So, just a question, the historic places plan change, so summary is that in a neighbour or inhabited first?
What it actually does is it puts some rules and there are rules attached, but there's also guidelines, right? So when you do, especially when it comes down to what you can do as opposed to what you can't do. It says, look, you know, you're keeping in consideration of roof lines, gables, materials you're building it out of. So it's not saying it does say what you can't do, but it gives greater protection to those like especially applied the historic precinct. So it recognises that there's been some mistakes made in the past which will not be repeated, because now there's there's guidelines in there which are saying this is what you can, we encourage you to do. That'd be right.
Yes, I think that's a pretty good description, Martin. And without the guidelines, so there's heritage buildings and a heritage precinct. Heritage precinct's got a quite high level rule that says any new building must be consistent with the heritage values in the precinct, but it doesn't go further than that. So if you want to build, people have asked us, what does that actually mean? And all we can say is, well, that's what we're going by, and we would liaise with the likes of Heritage New Zealand on that, and if they gave written approval, we would assume then they've met the heritage values, but not. We've had some that aren't successful because there isn't sufficient detail in there to talk about scale and materials and all of those things that Martin is suggesting. So the community have actually wanted to see this the same in Mayfields. They don't want an extra compliance, but they want to understand what does meeting the heritage values mean.
Yeah, transparency.
Yeah. So that they can build a good building.
It's not so much as sort of replicating history either. So what came through quite strong to think is that you have faux history, right? It's not Disneyland. But if you're going to be building something, it's like you're gabling and you're corrugated iron and the use of those sort of materials which are sympathetic. But it's not prescriptive. It is again their guidelines.
Right, I attended a meeting of the Central Otago District Arts Trust. I attended a meeting of the board of Central Otago REIT. I attended 3 meetings of the ADMI board, the museum board. I ran a meeting of Creative Writers Circle. I attended a public meeting organised by Great Power regarding rates increases. I attended a display by Winterstellar at Memorial Theatre, which others have spoken of. I ran a U3A session on districtisation, which was addressed by Peter and by Tim. I attended a demonstration of Ice and Line featuring their upgrade facilities, especially interested in the fact that the route has now changed the nature of that
rink and extended the usable season. I attended the opening of the KACB's celebration of 35 years. I've got this display over in Central Stories. I attended the opening at Central Stories of an art display by the Indigo Art Collective. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move that those be received and second that. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Status reports. Page 166 and then maybe on. Has anybody got any questions on those? I just had one. The Clyde Museum redevelopment. I don't know if anybody will be able to answer this. They talk about lowering the piles. It was moved there. Were they just not measured at the start, or did we just? How have we ended up here?
They say we did a switch in the design we were given, and we ended up with practically we've got. Does that look right? And now we've got to reduce the ramp. Let's tidy up. That's, I just like the best way we can.
Is there no ability to make a ramp that meets the gradient required to access? It seems to me like building the ramp will be a hell of a lot easier and cheaper than lifting the building and lowering the piles and then putting the building back down.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about cost.
Yeah.
And the ramp is more expensive than lowering the building, but I can get you the costs. You guys want information.
Wow.
Yeah, significantly expensive to build a ramp.
Significantly.
I will get you the numbers.
That would be great.
I don't have them right now, but I can get them to you quite quickly today.
Yeah.
And perhaps we'll talk about it.
Pleasure. That would be really good because this has been kicking around for quite some time and that seems like a really extreme answer to what appears to be a basic solution.
You can say it's a lot more likely than I was going to say.
Right. Okay. Any other questions on those status reports?
Cemetery boundary.
I was going to let it switch. Last conversation we put, so we've sent letters out to them with what we agreed would be the first offer. And so I guess we allow from memory that in the fencing act, there's a period of time that you have to allow people to come back. Probably 2 months. So we're within that window. Yeah, don't quite know that 2 months, but it is a period of time that we have to wait.
It's just always looking at that one and going, this is a 4-year. I know this is,
yeah.
The end is in sight.
Yeah, we can.
Chance. Any other questions? In that case, I'm happy to move that those be received. Chance, second that. Thank you. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Against? Carried. Date of the next meeting. 9th of September. Marvellous, and that brings our BCB formal part of the meeting to a close. Thank you very much. Those hundreds of people who are watching along with you. Much appreciated. 2. Thank you.
Thanks.